Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you one of the most powerful features of the Corbado Observe Management Console. It's the login funnel analysis. You can find it here, login and funnel. And to set some context why you need this feature, it's because when SIAM teams work with product analytics, usually it's quite binary. They see, hey, the login succeeded or it failed. Maybe there's some additional explanation for a failure, for instance, but it's quite generic. However, these SIAM teams also know that in production users, they just take different routes. Some prefer passwords, other log in with social logins. Some try a passkey login and they fall back to password, and then maybe they stop or they go back to a social login. So you can't really define one happy path, but instead there are different variants because there are different activities that you follow, and then you hopefully end up with a successful login, but also you can fail, of course. And this is what the funnel analysis basically depicts. It's a decision tree. There are different types of nodes and edges. So you start with, in this case, the login node has some basic KPIs about the overall login success rate. Orange nodes are different other analysis that you can dive into. Green ones are decision nodes. Blue ones are terminal nodes, complete or incomplete. And the purple ones are other subflows. So this might look a bit overwhelming, but in reality, there's different ways actually how your system can be traversed when someone tries to log in. One of the first things that I usually show is I click the play button because this shows you how users have really tried to log in. So every bullet in here or ball is basically one login attempt, and also the speed has an impact. Green ones are successful login attempts. You see a lot of them going through this node, and red ones are failed login attempts. Also, the speed shows how quickly those users are trying to log in. So the quicker someone reaches a terminal state, the quicker the login is either successfully completed or unsuccessful. So you also can see here in this demo data set, there is like one login path here in red, and it's the worst, let's say, offender. So this is something you should probably take an early look to try to understand what's going wrong. Why are so many people failing here? Why is that so bad? So if we take a look at the success rate, 17% only here, something you should definitely investigate. So that's the first thing. We also name those nodes activities and the edges are connections. You can drill it a bit down to make it a bit more, to have a better overview. See some less activities, some less connections. Let's stop that for now. And also the dark red one is always the worst offender, and in the green one is always the path which has the highest completion rate. So when you look into this data, you can now then also define some more settings. For instance, there might be loops, so someone jumping back and forth, providing an identifier, then trying to put in a password, and then again, they need to provide an identifier because it was wrong. So you can roll up those retries. Also, you can make it more compact because right now we also do have some incomplete logins, let's say this one here. And to get some better overview, you might also just display the completed ones. So if you go back, there's another thing which you can try out, because all those activities, all those different nodes connected to each other, which then depict one particular flow, they can be grouped into variants. So let's say there's a variant for A and a variant B and C and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of variants in this demo data set. And you can jump between those and try to really understand how did one user log in. So what's the one variant? And I mean, that not only works for the best outcomes, but it also works if you take a look at the offenders. So if you go a bit further here, you see the red ones, the ones which are incomplete. And each of those variants is ranked. You see the number of flows actually in that variant, how many were, in this case, incomplete, what's the share overall, some metrics about how long it took, and then also the variant itself. If you prefer like a table overview, you can look at the table, of course, and this table will then show you all the variants in here. Now we are looking at the biggest winners. Biggest winners, they have the highest completion and outcome share, and then you see, okay, someone provided an email address, then the identifier was completed, they provided a login, in this case a password, and then they successfully were authenticated. Of course, it's also possible for the biggest losers. Here it makes sense to fix the biggest losers first, because that's where you have the highest impact, and then you can really understand the different kind of typical variants that someone takes and assign your resources appropriately. So let's go back. Besides that, there is also the possibility to filter. So you can go to the top and filter. Let's say you have different apps, an Android app, an iOS app website. You can filter for touchpoints, when do users log in, operating system, browsers. So let's say I only want to look into Chrome. browsers. So then you would only see here Chrome browsers which had been part of the login process. The rest of the logic still works the same. Moreover, you can define custom attributes like countries and also whatever else you want to do. Let's say you only want to look in completed or incompleted logins. One other interesting aspect is the grouping function. So you can group by the attributes. So let's say by the operating system. Let's remove the Chrome one here. And when you scroll further down, you see the tree from the top grouped by the different different operating systems. And then you can also see that some of the paths are better than others just by switching the operating system. So you can really drill down and segment and understand, okay, where am I losing users and why maybe as well, or what do I need to fix on certain versions, or is there maybe a bug on Mac OS with my implementation, or is some redirect for a social login not really working? So really comprehensive to drill down, get some context and find the root cause of an issue. Moreover, there's one additional feature that we have recently introduced, and it's quite cool because it basically connects the authentication success rate and error rate. It's, let's say, quite a technical KPI to some more business value metrics. Those business value metrics, this can be either something positive. So let's say you work in e-commerce and payment, usually it's conversion rate. So you want to get that number up. Or if you're, let's say, in banking, insurance, that's maybe the number of help desk calls or tickets that you get, or also SMS OTPs that you send out. And when you click on opportunities and have inserted some of these business value metrics, let's say the conversion rate, you can see, and it's basically here the different variants or a different kind of leaks. And there you see, okay, hey, here I have the login with password, and there might be something odd, and that's causing me 19K of conversion of revenue per year, because we track that against the path that login with passwords would usually have. Of course, that's not 100%, but for some reason you're losing 11.3 percentage points, and you should really try to investigate and understand what's going on, why are these users not really succeeding. And then you can also go further down. See here, the password and social login is also underperforming in one country. Here it's a browser, for instance, a web view in Chrome is not working, and that's really helpful to understand the business impact of a faulty implementation. So something quite useful, and that helps you to really see what's going on. Another useful aspect is if you click on one of those nodes, let's say you click on this one, you see more detailed KPIs. So how many flows did really go through that particular node? What's the success rate? Were there loopbacks? And then you can start either to debug that, that's explained in a separate video, or in the age of AI, you can download the context and it will provide you some JSON context about this particular node. And then you can use Cloud Code, Codex, or whatever agent you have to try to understand the reasons for things not working as expected. So something quite powerful overall, the login file analysis. And I think the big value for SIAM teams is that it first of all gives you process visibility. So you really understand how are people logging in, which paths do they take, which screens do they see. You can segment that by different groupings, operating systems, and try to understand what's really working well, where you need to improve. And once you have identified an issue, you can really drill down into it. And I think in the end, that's a really powerful and valuable tool because it connects something technical, the authentication process, to something that the business really cares. SMS, OTP savings, help desk cost savings, conversion improvements. And I think that's actually something that SIAM teams could really use to get more visibility on their work and to improve the overall experience in the login.